Welcome everybody to Electric Education Center session number 8, swimming pools, mainly residential. The swimming pool subject is a very important one. There's too many lives lost annually due to carelessness of the users and the non-compliant installation of electric systems and the wiring that's installed by both the electrician and the homeowners who try to act like electricians. There should be no lives lost to either subject. And today I'm going to be discussing the installation at a single family dwelling unit. We will learn about the branch circuit from the main circuit breaker panel to the swimming pool motor, or the feeder that runs from the main panel to the swimming pool circuit breaker panel. We will discuss the branch circuits that run from the swimming pool panel to the pumps and filters, as well as the lights. Basically, we'll be discussing subjects that are in NEC Article 680. Now, as with any article contained in the NEC, most important section for the electrician and inspector to pay attention to is the .1 section of every NEC article, and that is titled the scope. This scope is going to tell you exactly what that section covers, or what that article covers, and keeps you in the right place. So we always review the scope before you can dig into any article to make sure that you are where you're supposed to be. So there's many different items in the pool industry. NEC Article 680 tells the electrician what rules apply to his particular installation. Part 2 applies to only permanently installed pools. Note that the definition of permanently installed pool will be only found in section 680.2, and it's the one that is filled up higher than 42 inches in height or more with water. That's what makes it a permanently installed pool. Roman numeral Part 3 applies only to storable pools, storable spas, storable hot tubs, and storable immersion pools. Storable generally means the max water level is 42 inches or less. Roman numeral Part 4 applies only to spas and hot tubs, what you would call a jacuzzi, but jacuzzi is a brand name, and that's not found in the NEC. It also applies to permanently installed immersion pools. Part 5 is for permanently installed fountains, like decorative fountains, and not intended for swimming or wading. Part 6 is for pools and tubs used for therapeutic purposes, like physical rehab. And it's like the ice tubs that the athletes will sit in after a football game or a baseball game. Part 7 covers hydromassage bathtubs. These are what you would call a whirlpool tub. It's nothing more than a regular bathtub with some air jets. So bottom line is, get in the correct part of Article 680 and follow the rules you're supposed to follow and keep the installation safe for both the users and the general public. So let's start with the storable type pool. Last summer with the COVID pandemic, the public community swimming pool season was essentially shut down since community anything was closed. The result was the purchase and installation of many small backyard pools, and the upcoming summer doesn't look to be any different. So what should you do as an electrical contractor? Well, first and foremost, get a notice out to your customers on your customer list and alert them to the need for a home inspection, especially if they're planning to install some kind of pool in their yard. What do you look for in the yard when you're doing your inspections? Well, first of all, you'd be surprised by the number of houses where, as an inspector, I would be on a property to do a pool bonding inspection, for example, on a new pool. And I would test all the outdoor receptacles I could find for GFCI protection. And even on newer houses, there would be duplex receptacles on the exterior of the house or in the yard that were not GFCI protected. So the first thing you do is get your 3-prong tester and test all the outdoor receptacles and the outdoor outlets, 120 and 240 volts, 50 amps or less. If the 20 NEC is in effect, that's the level you'll be checking. Again, 120 and 240 volts, 50 amps or less, if the 2020 NEC is in effect. Also keep in mind that the manufacturers would like you to check their GFI devices with the test and reset buttons. Now, if the 2020 is not in effect yet in your area, then you're going to, at the very least, check all 125 volt, 15 and 20 amp receptacles for GFCI protection, whether it's the receptacle type GFI or the GFI protection that's provided by a circuit breaker. So in the 2014 and the 2017, that's where you'll find the rule that says all 125 volt, 15 and 20 amp receptacles need this GFCI protection. So with this GFCI device testing, one thing I want to point out here is that the manufacturers will require that the GFI devices are tested monthly. So offer that service to your customer during your annual visit, and also offer testing the AFCI protected devices while you're there. I know the new generation of GFI devices are self-checking, and they run a self-diagnostic every several seconds. But the manufacturer still wants the push to test and push to reset buttons exercised in order to prove that the device works fine mechanically. So test them all that way. Other than that, for the small backyard pool, make sure the homeowner hasn't done some of his own handiwork. Most of these small storable backyard pools have a motor that comes with a factory installed cord, usually 25 feet in length. Now, if the homeowner sliced up that cord with his lawnmower and made his own repair, you have to check it out for polarity, first of all, and then inform the customer in writing, that a factory type replacement cord has to be installed on this motor. Word of mouth does not cut it either. You go in front of Judge Judy and say, yeah, Judge, I told the owner to do this or that. The owner's going to be on the other side of the courtroom telling the judge, Judge, that electrician didn't tell me a thing. And then you lose, because you're the professional. You're the one that's supposed to be given these warnings in writing. Overhead clearances in this backyard, very important. Refer to NEC Table 680.9A for the overhead conductor clearances. You have to determine, what kind of conductor it is, determine what the voltage level is of the conductors, and if it's over the existing area or the proposed pool area. And then look at situation A, B, or C in that table to check compliance with the code. So you might say, well, Rich, what do you want me to do if the conductors are too low over the pool area? What do you expect me to do about that? Well, the only choices you have, or the homeowner has, is to move the pool or move the wires. It's simple as that. There are many yards in which the owner had to relocate overhead wiring or put it underground to meet the NEC rules. All right, at this point here, it's time for the middle 8. There's a couple points from last week's talk about the electric vehicles. As you know, I'm very excited about the electric vehicles and the number that are being sold every year, more and more. One person pointed out that along with all the other EV savings, there's more savings due to the fact that there's no oil changes. There's no oil filter to replace. There's no air filter, spark plugs, fuel injection, anything like that. And to top it all off, there's no more $40 or whatever emission inspection fee. Another person had a question, and it was, what do we do? I talked about taking vehicle charger cables across the sidewalk, and that you can't really be doing that. So he says, what do you want us to do if we can't have a bunch of cords laying across the sidewalks in front of the row homes in these cities? So my suggestion to you is sign up for my class this month. I have a class on March 26, 2021, to learn more about how to solve that problem and how not to solve that problem. All right, so you would go to electriceducationcenter.com, Bensalem, Pennsylvania. Pull up my website, click on courses, click on register, and you're in. I also want to point out a possible conflict, the next item I have here, in the 2020 NEC between 210.8F, which requires GFI protection for all outdoor outlets at other than dwelling units that are less than 150 volts to ground and 50 amps or less. And then section 625.54, which requires GFCI protection only for receptacles installed for the connection of a vehicle charger. Well, you might say that a receptacle is an outlet, Rich. I know that. But in the documentary, in the NEC handbook published by NFPA, it's pointed out that you only have to provide GFI protection for a direct wired car charger unit if it is specified in the manufacturer's instructions. So I'm going to try to get clarification for you on that issue, because in my mind, there is a conflict there. All right, back to the swimming pools. Let's move on to permanently installed pools. Permanently installed pools is one that is in the ground or partially in the ground and can hold water to a depth greater than 42 inches. Well, Rich, where's the 42 inches measured? Is it to the skimmer, to the top of the pool? You know, in the slides I see, they show the top of the pool. Some people say, well, no, you go by the skimmer because it can't go over that height. Well, it could if the skimmer is blocked up. So I don't know what to tell you on that. But I know what a storable pool looks like when I see it, and I know what a permanently installed pool is when I see it. So these permanently installed pools, in addition to the same GFCI device checks that you're going to do, your maintenance checks and your overhead conductor clearances that you're checking, there's a list of other items to check on a permanently installed pool. Some of them are like Equipotential Bonding per section 680.26. Bonding of perimeter surfaces. Bonding of all metal within 5 feet of the edge of the pool water. Equipment grounding per section 680.23. Cord lengths for the motors and that. Wiring methods, how do you get the wires to the pool area? Flexible connections, how do we handle that? Motor GFCI protection, what are the latest rules there? Existence of receptacles and location. Existence of luminaires and paddle fans. Underwater luminaires. Branch circuit wiring. Junction boxes, also known as deck boxes, per section 680.24. And then there's several miscellaneous items in section 680.27 titled Specialized Pool Equipment. All right, so let's take these items one at a time. Equipotential bonding is basically mechanically connecting together all conductive metallic parts and items within 5 feet of the water's edge. Read NEC section 680.26 for the full story. A copper 8-gauge solid conductor, insulated or bare per the NEC, is used to connect such items as metal ladders, pool frames, chain link fences, underwater luminaires, and the water itself. The reason this is done, tying all this together, is to ensure that there's no difference in voltages between different surfaces. If there's no voltage difference, then there's no shock, no voltage shock. The bonding conductor can spider out from different objects and head here and head there and tie in all these different points. Or you could daisy chain, go connect the dots. You can go right around a pool that way. Either way, it's fine. This bonding conductor does not, I repeat, does not have to be a single, continuous, unbroken conductor. One word about bonding inspection I want to put in here is that a bonding connection cannot be checked with an O-meter. You cannot check from point A to B with a O-meter and get a reading and say, oh, the bonding conductor is good. No, that doesn't cut it. Personally, I run a test that pushes 3 amps through the bonding conductors, and I read it on an ammeter. And I go from point to point. This test proves that the conductor is there, number one, and that the connections are not corroded or weak. If you get an inspector to come in and says he's doing a bonding inspection, he looks around. He doesn't have a meter in his hand or a tester in his hand. He is not doing a bonding inspection the right way. Grounding of equipment. In addition to the bonding requirements, all right, the following items have to be grounded. And you do this by the use of an equipment grounding conductor. The equipment grounding conductor is the green insulated conductor that's in a cord or in a conduit. That's the one we're talking about. And the equipment grounding conductor is contained always in the same cable or conduit or raceway as the power conductors for that circuit. Some equipment that needs grounding includes the motors, the luminaires, the pool cover motors, the GFI receptacles, the pool water heaters, and the pool circuit breaker panel itself. All have to be grounded. Cord lengths are limited by the National Electrical Code. 680.35A says minimum 6 feet and max 15-foot length for storable and portable immersion pools. Yet in the NEC handbook, the commentary points out that the swimming pool standard requires that the cord be at least 25 feet long. So that's a conflict in my mind, but you're going to get whatever cord comes with the storable pool, and that's what you're going to get. But the standard says 25 feet. The National Electrical Code says max 15 feet. So whatever. I don't know what to tell you on that. This is the standard that is put in there to, has the intent to discourage the use of extension cords. So if the pool comes with a 25-foot cord, then you're pretty sure that you're going to be able to reach a GFI protected receptacle somewhere in the yard or on the house. For permanently installed pools, section 680.8A and 680.21 limits the pool associated motor cord length to 3 feet for a permanently installed pool. Wiring methods. Let's talk about that a little bit. They're generally conduit and wire for the pools because most of the pool wiring requires an insulated equipment grounding conductor, like the receptacle in the yard or the pool wet niche underwater luminaires. All right, they all need insulated equipment grounding conductors. I would say the majority of pool installations these days use PVC conduit to get the job done. Then you would pull in a wiring method that has a W in the designation, like THW or THWN, and the W makes it okay to use in wet locations. Non-metallic sheath cable, Romex, in other words, is not allowed to be used underground anywhere, especially not for pools. Well, Rich, how about if I use PVC conduit and I seal the joints really, really good? No. And don't forget, all the Chapter 3 wiring methods, all the .10s are uses permitted, and all the .12s are uses not permitted. So check out the .10s and the .12s for non-metallic sheath cable. Flexible connections should be made using either liquid-tight flexible metallic conduit or liquid-tight flexible non-metallic conduit. That is generally what is used when the flexible connections have to be made for the motors. GFI protection for the motors. Whether it's a 120 volt motor or a 240 volt motor, Whether it's cord connected or direct wired, it does not matter. They all have to be GFCI protected. Now, you could use receptacles or circuit breakers to provide this protection, whichever one you want to use. For lighting and receptacles, pay attention to 680.22 for this, for permanently installed pools. That's the section, 680.22, that states that there has to be at least one 15 or 20 amp receptacle at least 6 feet from the pool and not more than 20 feet from the inside wall of the pool. Now that's to make sure that there is one there with GFI protection to be used. You don't want people running extension cords out of houses and coming out of a living room receptacle that's not GFI protected. You don't want that. So the code requires at least one 15 or 20 amp receptacle, at least 6 feet from the pool, and not more than 20 feet from the inside walls of the pool. So you also don't want somebody in the pool trying to plug into any kind of a receptacle. Not a good idea. And that's the reason for keeping them at least 6 feet away from the pool. Also in this section, you will find the rules governing existing luminaires that were already in place or already installed when the pool was constructed. It'll also cover how to handle any planned lighting installations that may go in, how close you could put them, whether they have to be GFI protected or not. All that information is in there, 680.22. Deck boxes. Deck boxes, as they are known, provide a place to terminate the tails that come with the underwater wet niche luminaires. When you buy that underwater light, the cord is already with it from the factory, and they're sealed at the enclosure so no water could get into the light. From the deck box, you would install branch circuit wiring to get back to a circuit breaker panel, whether it's the main panel in the house or a swimming pool circuit breaker panel. You're not allowed to take a pool luminaire directly back to any circuit breaker panel. Follow the rules in 680.24. The deck box must be a listed, labeled, and identified box for swimming pool junction box. All right, so this is one here. Can't see that too good, but it's Thermocraft. And some of the rules with these deck boxes are that for the grounding terminals, you have to have one more than the number of conduit ports. So this one has 3 conduit ports, and the terminal strip inside has a place to land 4 conductors. Okay, so the big one could be for a bonding conductor, say. The 3 other ones are for the 8-gauge solid that would fit in there. There's also a bonding terminal on the outside. You would bring your 8-gauge solid to that. All right, and on the inside of this cover, it says listed swimming pool junction box. Now, I know of one inspector who told the contractor, oh, you could just take those lighting tails, those light whips, back to the circuit breaker panel and just terminate them in there. No, you can't. The circuit breaker panel is not a listed swimming pool junction box. No, you cannot take those tails, those whips, back to a circuit breaker panel. Not allowed. So the deck boxes. Now, the other thing is on these deck boxes, they have to be at least 4 inches above a deck. They have to be at least 8 inches above the highest water level. You cannot put these in a walkway to turn them into a trip hazard. And you know, hide them in the bushes or whatever you want to do, but deck boxes must be in use. As part of your inspection, you know, on that backyard inspection, if there is a deck box, make sure you take the top off and check that the terminals and all the connections inside are good and clean and operable. So to summarize, offer the inspections to your customer in the first place. Tell them that you will advise them before they choose a location for the pool. And then you can go and you can tell them all that I just told you in this session here. As far as, they won't think of things like, they won't think at all about service cables, service conductors going overhead because they're like 15 feet in the air or something. They won't think that's a problem, but it is a problem. You start bringing toys into that swimming pool and things that the kids throw around. Also, the skimming nets with the long pole handles on them. Some of them are aluminum. They conduct electricity. There's a lot of reasons why that pool cannot be under overhead conductors. So tell them you'll help to advise them as far as a location for the pool. Then be sure all the GFI protection that is required and is operational, and test all the GFI protected devices. Check the condition of all electrical cords. All right, now next week I'm going to go right into discussing commercial pools and pool installations, existing inspections. All right, so safe swimming out there. Van Wert out.